Hello everyone, this is Gursimar here. We are now currently discussing the stakeholders in communication management case study, the instruction manual that scared customers away. First of all, let's discuss this quote that I personally find is a very insightful quote for this particular case study and communication in general. Don't make assumptions. You need to find the courage to answer and ask questions that you really want to ask and communicate with others clearly to avoid misunderstandings and drama. Both of these things happened in this case study in particular. So let's first dive right into this case and see its overview. The case summary here actually tells us about this what the company in question is about, which is Sagatec. Sagatec wanted to enter a new processing market with their highly optimized processing product that they built up after a long time of investment and competent people doing a lot of hard work to achieve better results. But when it came to informing their customers of their product's features, they decided to rely on the same people, and which in turn led them to assume that a more documented and detailed manual would be more suitable for the customers. But the office workers and general laymen found it very hard to understand and resolve their issues using that user manual, which had a very unstructured layout and a lot of complexity and redundancy in it. This led to a loss of customer favor for the product because the user manual was too difficult to learn. The stakeholders, such as business journals, labeled it as too complex based on the user manual, and Sagatec paid for their mistakes by recreating the same user manual and fixing its flaws, making it more clear, concise, and structured, and most importantly, user-friendly. The net overall loss was 350,000 Canadian dollars, and but the real loss was that the product that all of these people worked so hard to make was misrepresented by the user manual, and the setbacks actually made the company lost a lot of its reputation. While understanding this case study, I have made a lot of assumptions. All of them are listed over here. I assume that Sagatec was entering a new market for word processors and didn't conduct a proper research on the customers and what they were expecting for that market. I assume that the product itself, that the word processor was easy to use, but the details included in the manual made it seem a lot more complicated than it should have been seen. And then the third assumption is that there was no initial testing or feedback to improve the quality of user manual, which can be assumed because the senior software program designer was the single person responsible for making and then packaging it with the product. And finally, assume that the company paid little to no attention to overall user experience. I think all of these are valid assumptions. Now let's consider the elements involved in this particular case study and what their ideal as well as actual parts are. For example, the sender is Sagatec. It is same for both ideal and actual, but the sender is using a senior program designer for one part, and in the ideal case they should have taken a communication management plan and a team to handle such an important task. And then there's the receiver, which is basically the same for both cases, which are office workers and suppliers. In the first case, however, the topic of the communication is informing through introduction manual, and I think the ideal case would have been helping through instruction manual. And why? I think that is same for both the cases, and that is to empower and persuade the customers for competitive edge. And now let's focus on how. Written manual accompanying a product was the reason in the manner in which the communication was conducted. It was a form of pull communication, in which the customers could look their queries in a user manual. And the format was, in actual case, very redundant and unconcise. It should have been clear and concise because the information was detailed. And as per our toolkit, for such an information, clarity and conciseness is essential. And now the tone was formal and inaccessible. Now I think proper tone needs to be more accessible in such a case. The structure was unstructured because users didn't know where to start looking for their queries. Proper structure with the introduction was actually implemented by them when they rewrote the instruction manual. And then the channel was visually unappealing. And I think visually appealing and more inviting channel would have been the ideal case, because that is the first thing any communication should be focusing towards, its audience and how they can become interested in what you are communicating. The communication errors. Well, the intended effect of the communication was not achieved. Neither the users were informed nor they were persuaded to buy the product. Second, the communication manual failed to connect with users because they assumed they would be more interested in efficiency than ease of use. They should have taken proper steps and not make assumptions. The senior program designers should have taken more feedback. And the fourth major communication error is a bad format. That is the one element of communication that really settled the bad deal for this company. The manual was unstructured in format with no clear introduction or layout. Lack of conciseness, the material was redundant, overly detailed and complex, and poorly made for office usage. Impact of stakeholders was not considered. Non-specialists, laymen, business journalists, and even people who were impacted by the user manual were not considered. And in turn, all of them impacted the sales of the product. The cost losses. The rewrite cost of $350,000 and years lead in market that was lost because the product itself was good. Just the manual, the form of communicating its usage, of how the user will interact with the product, was ill-made. The reputation costs and loss of loyal customers as they became less accessible, and the wastage of work, potential resources, and employee dissatisfaction. I think all of these are the losses because of poor communication in this case study. And possible solutions. I think this is my favorite part because implementation of proper communication management plan would have solved this very obvious lack of feedback problem in this case study. And the second thing is that a good feedback mechanisms to establish best connection with other departments, stakeholders, and ultimately end users would have really helped. The third thing is the focusing on clarity, proper layout, conciseness, and user experience. I think conducting a pestle analysis to properly assess the environment and to reduce assumptions would have been the best case, because in that case they would have taken the time to understand what the customers want from their product, especially the technological sector of the pestle. Thank you for your time, Ada, and have a nice day.